Okay, welcome. Today we're going to travel to Palestine to visit a traditional, very old sheepfold. And visiting here will give us some insight into Jesus' teaching about the Good Shepherd in the Gospel of John, chapter 10, and also Luke, chapter 15. So we're going to do share screen here to see if we can pull those slides up for you. Okay. So here we are. Jim Martin, our guide, has been able to bring us now here several miles north of Jerusalem, deep into Palestinian territory. And he's been able to find a traditional sheepfold, as it would have been back in the time of Jesus. And he's gotten permission for us to visit this sheepfold and to walk around in it. So here we are. I'm standing on a cave here, and we are looking across the sheepfold. This is the sheepfold here. We're looking across the sheepfold to the opening. The walls of the sheepfold would have been higher originally to prevent someone from crawling over the wall, as Jesus says in John chapter 10. The sheep would have spent the night in the sheepfold, and then in the morning, the shepherd would lead them out the door of the sheepfold, grazing on the hillsides at will, but not down in the fields, at least during crop time. After the crops were harvested, the sheep would be encouraged to go down into the fields and to nibble on the little pieces of grain that were left over. And of course, as they walked back and forth in that field, they would have been also fertilizing the field, which would have been an advantage to everyone. So then at night, back into the sheepfold. Now we've stepped to the door. We are looking across the sheepfold, again toward that cave, which is in the back of the sheepfold. And this is where the sheep would be gathered during the night. And then if it happened to be a hailstorm or something very difficult weather, the shepherd and the sheep could hunker back into the cave and get out of the hail or out of the driving rain. So a very, very practical thing that served in a number of different circumstances. We're now inside that cave, and you can see that the back wall was not perfectly solid to start with, so the shepherd had gathered some rocks and built up the back wall to make his sheepfold sturdy on that side and secure, doing what down-to-earth farmers and subsistence farmers do all over the world. They take what nature gives them and work with it to make some improvements. So we're back on top of that cave again now, looking across the sheepfold toward the door of the sheepfold. And now you begin to understand Jesus, at one point in John 10, says, "I am the door of the sheep." In a different place, he says, "I am the good shepherd." And as you look at Dr. Averbeck here, you can see where indeed he is the good shepherd, the faithful shepherd, and the door, both at the same time. So this is the sheep's view as they look out toward Dr. Averbeck. As they look out toward the big bad world, they see their shepherd there, faithful shepherd, in the doorway. We're outside now, and this is the coyote's view. And as the coyote was walking down the hillside, he might smell sheep and think to himself, "Hey, I would like to have mutton for supper." And then he sees the faithful shepherd there with his sturdy club, and he thinks to himself, "Well, I guess I will change my mind and go look for some field mice for supper." Now, the one thing that we forgot to get into this picture of Dr. Averbeck was the sturdy shepherd's club in his right hand toward the coyote, and his shepherd's staff in his left hand toward the sheep. So to give you a little sense of that, here's the shepherd's club or rod in his right hand, and his shepherd's crook or staff in his left hand. I was struck recently reading Psalm 23. David says, "Your rod and your staff, they comfort me." You can see where the rod would be a comfort because that's there to whack the predator on the head. But the crook or the staff is also a comfort because that's there to get us back on the path when we wander. So both of those are a comfort to us. A wise person once said that the rod is to save, or the club is to save the sheep from the predators, and the shepherd's crook is to shave the sheep from themselves. So that was nicely put. One more here as we think about the Good Shepherd. So from the time that Constantine dedicated Constantinople in 330 AD right down to the present, the dominant image of Christ was the Christ as the Pantocrator. As during the Constantinian era, Christians were no longer worshiping in small house churches or in out-of-the-way places, but they began to worship in these large, elegant basilicas. And in the basilica, up in the apse above the altar, would be the mosaic of Christ, the Pantocrator, the ruler of all. And it's an image of Christ that's very powerful, very majestic, almost military. He's judging the heavens and the earth and the living and the dead, and it's kind of almost very impressive, almost fearsome. And that's the dominant image from the Constantinian era all the way to the present era in the Greek Orthodox Church, which is, of course, a direct descendant of the Byzantine Church. But that was not the dominant image that the early Christians had of Christ. They had this image in their minds when they thought of Jesus. And this is, of course, a fresco from the Catacomb of Priscilla under the city of Rome. Catacombs were in use 2nd century, 3rd century, 4th century. By about the 5th century, the catacombs went out of use and were forgotten for literally 1,000 years, and then accidentally rediscovered in 1578. Catacombs were burial places used somewhat by pagans and Jews and by Christians, a place to bury the dead, but then also a place to at times go down and visit in honor of the loved ones. This is a fresco then of Jesus in one of those Christian worship centers in the catacombs, and this is how they thought of Jesus, as the gentle shepherd, the one who has gone after the lost sheep and joyfully put it on his shoulders. That's Luke 15, verse 5. Put it on his shoulders and brought it back to the rest of the flock, and reuniting the flock together. This was the image that they had of Jesus, and I hope that this is the image that you have also to carry you in the year ahead. Thank you for joining us.